I just wanted to add that the author of the Yellowstone bill was William Claggett, who went on to become the Silver-tongued Orator of the West and led the Idaho Territory Constitutional Convention.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Gary?
A couple of observations, and maybe more questions. I think dating back to the late 1800s, there was always pushback, a so-called rejection by corporate interests of the whole concept of the public good and public lands. It wasn't just 1970s with that Sagebrush Rebellion. It recycles, and it's been going on for a long period of time. Arguably for 10,000 years since agriculture, but that's another story. But at the same time, I think Congress in the 70s felt like they were establishing a process, and so everything that's happened since then. I think there was a consensus back then that this is how public lands are going to be managed. And so Congress's role, probably, they recognized back in the 70s that maybe their role was going to be diminished. Now, it really hasn't, but worked out that way. But I think that was sort of the intent, was to the finality, especially with the Federal Land Policy Management Act. We set up a system, and now, with a few exceptions, such as establishing national parks, expanding the National Wilderness Preservation System, Congress was largely going to stay back out of those issues.
I would not disagree with what you have said. I think your first point is absolutely true. Periodically, we have this backlash to public lands. And the backlash, I think, there's one right at the turn of the 20th century. It's pretty strong when these places are first getting created. And then it sort of dies down because my interpretation is, well, it didn't turn out as bad as we thought. And then there's another one in the mid-20th century, especially around grazing land, because it's right after the Taylor Grazing Act, creation of the Bureau of Land Management. Then it kind of dies down again. And then we got the Sagebrush Rebellion in the 80s. I mean, I think you're right that Congress thought it was doing the right thing and setting itself up for a process that would go on. I think now people who are in Congress not sure how that it turned out the way they wanted it. And some want to, I think, I don't know, dismantle some of those things or bypass some of the processes that you're talking about that were put in place at that point. Yeah.
You said that these lands were set aside in the national parks, and then at some point that they would be changed by whatever, we would change, I don't remember the words exactly. But at some point, private investors were going in and building hotels and taking people into these parks, like say Yellowstone or something. And did that happen in between there, or how did that all happen, that they could go in there and build those hotels and bring people in and so on and so forth?
Good question. I don't know all the ins and outs and details about concessionaires and all of that. It's an important question that I'm just not ready to talk about. So there's two parts to the mission. One is we want the public to enjoy these places, and we want to keep them unimpaired. And so when we say develop roads or develop the hotels and things like that, that's the enjoyment part. So that's seen very much within the mission of the Park Service. But so is preserving it unimpaired, also part of the Park Service. And you've got at different times, different things are emphasized. So right before Mission 66 was launched in the middle of the 1950s, Bernard DeVoto, who was this important writer who wrote for Harper's, wrote a scathing review of the national parks, national publications, like, we should close Yellowstone and Yosemite because they're just in terrible, awful, horrible shape. Which of course shocked everyone. What, close our national parks? And he wanted them to be improved. I'm not sure he would have enjoyed Mission 66. I think he probably would have thought that went over the top. But there was a moment where, like, these are shabby. they need to be taken better care of. So there would have been a big impulse. Conrad Worth, who ran the Park Service and did Mission 66, I'm sure he never had any doubt at all that he was doing the best thing by promoting development within the park. As that's happening during the decade that Mission 66 and all of that, what some of us might think overdevelopment occurred, at the same time the wilderness movement is getting its bill passed. Now the first 9 million acres that were preserved in the wilderness system with the Wilderness Act, all were from Forest Service land. But after they grabbed Park Service land too, because it is wilderness. And in those places, those parts of the parks, there's not development. Yeah.
Didn't the CCC have a big impact? Didn't they build a lot of the infrastructure in these, and what impact do you think they had on our?
They have huge. You probably want more detail than huge, right? The CCC was really important. They built lots of trails, lots of roads, and lots of bridges, and campgrounds, and parks, and national forests, and all of that. And in fact, some of the people who formed the Wilderness Society had been around all of this, and they're like, oh my goodness, there's no, no places left that there's just open and wild. And so there's actually reaction. So it does two things. It builds the infrastructure, it gets people out and enjoying the forest and that sort of thing, but there also creates a reaction. It's like, we don't want to have so much access everywhere. And the CCC helped prompt that too. You had
I don't even know how to ask this question, because in my mind it's so huge. In Montana, where we have land adjacent to Forest Service, we are learning of the complicated problems between people coming from out of state with a lot of money buying up, not acres, not sections, miles and miles of land, and closing it to the public. And even though there are historical rights to access public land through those lands, and then the public can't have access to them. And I guess my question is, I want to become more informed about how can that be approached. We've talked to the Forest Service in Montana, and they have some ideas, and I appreciate that, and they are working on it, they're pretty aware of it, but I don't think the public's aware. A few people are certainly, the hunters are certainly aware of what's happening. And do you know at any point anything where I can become better informed?
No. Your concern is, I think, widespread, and I think a week or two ago, there was a member of House Representatives who put in a hopper, a bill that was going to allow the selling off of public land. And hunters told him, don't you dare, and he pulled it out. So.
Was that, what state was that?
He's from Utah, but it was for the public's land. So you build allies with hunters, for example. I think you talk about it. You're really asking like a political organizing question, and I'm not a political organizer. But I think there's a lot of people who care a lot about what you're saying.
And they have guns too.
Yeah, Congress responds to white men with guns. Who would have thought?
I've got a question. I mean, we seem to, in this country, contrary to what I've heard, the pendulum swings. And today our forests are a shambles, they're a wreck, they're a tinderbox. Our local communities, it's not corporate interest. I live in a small, local, rural community. Our schools are a shambles because we don't get the 25% funds anymore. And I see there is a need to make some corrections in the laws that we need to get back in the forest. But you know what my biggest fear is? We go back to the way it was. And unfortunately, we have a difficult time finding the middle. So my question to you is, do you see a need for reforming the laws and to get us back into, responsible management of these resources so our local communities can benefit like they used to?
That's a really good question, and one I didn't get to address, and I apologize for that. How do I address this? I I have a piece that should be coming out maybe later this week that deals with BLM, and I'm gonna just use this as an example. During the last administration, the BLM went through a planning process revision. And it was called Planning 2.0, a very creative name. And one of the things that was going to happen there was, because planning takes a long time, there's lots of threats of lawsuits, and then like we don't ever get to the chance to actually manage this stuff, right? Planning 2.0 said, we really want the public involved earlier, because what was happening was, here's a plan we've written, tell me what you think. And the public said, this is terrible, go back from square one. So one of the things Planning 2.0 is trying to do is, rather than say, here's the plan, what do you think? Said, hey, let's develop a plan. And then, you all are involved from the beginning, we create a plan that have identified the problems, worked them out, and created some sort of compromise. And then let's manage it, let's do it, implement it. That rule change has been overturned by the House. And if the Senate overturns it, we're back to square one. And actually, I think we're back to court. So I think, yes, we can't just litigate forever and not manage. But we can't say, we want to open everything up to oil and gas right now, because that's not, I think, within the public's values. Or we're not going to clear cut everything. We won't have fires if we cut all the trees, right? We don't want that either. So yes, we need to have that, and I don't know how we get to where people can sit down at a table at the right time rather than across the table in corporate. I don't know if that answered your question, but maybe there's something.
Thanks.
So,
The exceptionality that mining has in respective lands.
yeah, you can mine wherever you want for no money at all. I've exaggerated slightly. Mining has historically, 1872 was when the General Mining Act or something like that was passed. It gave highest priority to mineral exploration anywhere on the public domain for like no money at all.
Including wilderness areas?
Yeah, so the exception around wilderness there was, so in order to get it past Congress, Wayne Aspinall, who was the House member who chaired the Interior Committee, said, you have to allow mining in wilderness where it exists, and 20 years, you've got 20 years from the passage of this law to keep looking for ore. And if you find it before January 1st, 1984, you can develop it, and you can't stop that. We're past that now.
But that stood.
It did stay. But it's my understanding that it was never used. That's one of the books I'm working on is an effort to use it. It got shut down. But it was in place, it had to be in place in order to get Congress to buy it.
So we're a little bit past 1, so I think maybe we'll formally wrap it up, because I know a lot of folks have next appointments to get to, but if Adam has maybe a few extra minutes, he can answer some additional questions from folks before you leave. So thank you all for coming.